Hi, and welcome to our Bn205 presentation for our SRS document. Today we'll be talking about our university RideShare app, where we're trying to create a university RideShare app that helps to minimize RideShare travel for students from their place of residence to university. We're trying to make this application so it's safe and secure travel for students to be able to go from one location to the other, to also be reliable and affordable for these students. Our aim is to make a cheaper expense of travel, because we know that students can have other expenses such as accommodation, travel, and food that may take up that budget and not allow for recreational activities to be partaken in. So as a summary of our document today, we'll be talking about the timeframes, the analysis of factors that go into this application, the potential issues that may arise and what we're going to do about them, the functional and non-functional requirements of the application, and then we'll be talking about an outline of the application and what it is and how it's going to work.
The objective of this project is create a safe and secure rideshare application service for university students and staff to use. This application service is eligible for people aged 16 and over who can qualify for this service by entering their current valid university email address. This email address will verify if the current student is attending a university. The project aims to cater for a safe and reliable share ride service for current students and staff. The university share ride application will be available on mobile and web services. The application has a detailed terms and services, about the server application. The rideshare application will have a GPS tracking to monitor each trip that the teacher or students take. This will be able to keep a record of data in the database of the ride shares that have occurred over the past 3 months. This feature will always keep students safer and more accountable. The project scope, the scope of this project is the scope of the university rideshare application is to integrate all public and private universities in Sydney together into one main domain system. The application will include student benefits. These benefits will include discounted rides, pool share rides, special offers, and safer commute for students. The company plans to discount most rides for the first 6 months in order to attract interest from staff and students who are interested in this service. These discount rides will hopefully attract a larger database of students and staff from universities all over Sydney. Individuals who use this service will not be addressed or asked by their sexuality, race, or religion. This service will be forwarded more towards international students who find it difficult to get to campus or have outings that are safe. The service is all-inclusive rideshare service where there are no boundaries to the user's needs. The functional requirements of this system is the system will run off many databases that have full inclusive server system. The server system will also be available to download on a smartphone, either from the Google Play Store or the Apple Play Store or the Apple Store. Web server system will also be available for students accessing the system from their computers. The system will be compatible with all phones, Android and iPhone, as well as tablets and computers. The system will be available to download on a smartphone, either from Google Play Store or Apple Store, as said before. The mobile application system will load up the phone every 5 seconds when clicking on it. Searching for a driver should take between 10 to 20 seconds, depending on the area. The payment system will be accepted straight away, and a receipt will be accepted and sent to the user's student email address. The system will display a current up-to-date map of the surrounding area and destination. The application system will display a message box for the student able to message their selected driver. The estimated cost and budget for this project, the start time would be on the 1st of January 2020 and go for 9 months until mid of September 2022. The work on the application will be done remotely from home from each group member, but we'll be collaborating twice a week over Zoom to coordinate our approach over the RideShare application. This project will cost between 150,000 to 600,000 Australian dollars. This type of money will be spent in all servers, management, employees, staff, software testing, mobile application testing, web development, digital authentication, advertising, hardware, leases, and insurance. The project also must be verified by a payment vendor such as MasterCard and Visa.
In the next section, we have the work breakdown structure, as seen in the left image there. So the work breakdown structure simply is using Microsoft Project to formulate each individual task, each individual subtask within the project management plan. So for instance, we've got analyzing the requirements as the first, one of the first stages in the planning. The identifying the strengths, weaknesses, and risks of the project are identified in the planning section under the subtask of the University RideShare app. Following this includes the requirements analysis. So this is where information gathering on our proposed app is explored, delved into, and this is also where feasibility report is produced. So discusses the costs involved in the previous slides. Anything from that, like salaries, pay rates per hour for the employees, and other sort of costs involved with outsourcing or that sort. Defining the product requirement, so that's the specifics of what the RideShare app will do. Those specifically will be obviously provide a means of travel to students at universities in a safe kind of way. Obviously, it has to be safe for students and drivers as well. So a lot of background checks have to be completed on employees that work for the app, and it allows sort of a safer travel option alternative. System models are then also explored in the requirements. So this could be anything from UI mockups, wireframes, could also be the use of additional UI designs, so like storyboards. Following this, we have the design. So this is where the design of the software is specified. So this could be interface architectural requirements. Furthermore, we've got the implementation stage. So this is where the physical programming of the University RideShare app will begin. The language will be identified in this, and then the programming will commence. And generally the programming and the testing will be the most costly and longest periods of development of this app. So that's why the project spans over several months, because they have to run test cases once they actually complete. And this leads us to our second topic, which is testing. So they execute test cases in this scenario. We can also have to double check that the requirements verification and validation meet the original requirements from the report in the earlier stages of the project. And then deployment occurs generally within a week, and it could be rolled out incrementally, or it can be a full-on rollout. Also, the maintenance is a continual process. So bug fixes are commenced if bugs are identified, and then performance monitoring obviously continues throughout the duration of the operation of the software. We've got the second image to the right here, which is it's the network diagram, or the critical path. So this simply describes start and end dates of each individual subtask under the University RideShare app. This is really helpful to get a better graphical visualization of what entities lie in each task. And just going on to the second slide, we've got the Gantt chart here representing the project schedule. Now, this is a visual representation of the project timeline over the duration of its life cycle. And this is really helpful to see where if any tasks overlap with each other, that means that they can then be rescheduled or added additional resources to cope with the demand that they're producing. And that concludes that section.
All right, this next section is to do with the stakeholder analysis. So essentially we identified our 5 key stakeholders, which would include the riders, aka the customers who are using the app, the drivers, the people who are basically providing the service, the investors who could technically be riders, and other people who basically invest into the business. They allow us to upgrade and enhance the app's performance. Mobile operating providers, they're the people who essentially allow the app to just exist as a whole, and they get to make its functions optimal. And employees, who are essentially the people who are on standby. They're there to take calls. They can assist users who need help with things. They need to sort something out. They're on standby to assist those people. Next slide. So this next slide down here is the risk management plan. So in the top left, we have the risk matrix, which essentially acts like the legend of this. It basically identifies the likelihood of something happening. So we got very unlikely to potentially very likely. It also includes the impact of something. So it could be very small, very minute, or it could be quite severe. This is explained through color as well, where the lightest shade of green is best case scenario, and the the red color is seen as the hardest or the worst case scenario. Now, looking in the top right, we have the risk register, and these are essentially the highest potential risks that can occur, and they would have the most damaging effects. So starting off with the lack of funds, the impact of this risk would be the production may be put to a stop and the system itself would cease. And the impact of this would be rather severe, and it would be quite problematic. So luckily, the likelihood is very unlikely, and the risk level is medium. To mitigate this plan, we would plan on raising the price and apply for more funding from the current investors. And if we can't get, if we're unable to get the designated funds from them, we would try to look for more investors, and we would personally request the financial project manager to continue. To continue from there, we have delayed progress. This is essentially the impact of this one is with each delay, customers become less and less interested, and that might diminish overall support. We put this one as a medium high impact, but I think this case it would also be very unlikely, still posing a medium risk level. To mitigate this, we increase our efforts to complete the system and try to complete the production as soon as we can possibly do it. This might involve making our employees and the workers work overtime, and this would go to the head of project and the HR. The next section from there would be a malicious attack. So this would be an attack from a hacker or some sort of threat, and this could result in the code becoming breached and potentially losing or data being stolen. This impact is very severe, and luckily, again, pretty unlikely, although it is possible, and the risk level would be rather high. So our mitigation plan would be to identify the source of the issues and try to eliminate it as quick as possible, or try to, in a sense, prevent it as well as we possibly can. This would then go to the security team. And the final one we have in the bottom left is bugs and errors. The app is not being received well by customers due to lots of bugs and errors, and this will ultimately just cause a loss. The impact of this would be medium. Again, unlikely, because we would hope to create it and have minimal bugs due to testing. The risk level would be rather minimum, and of course, the mitigation technique would be make sure the app is frequently updated and tested to find/remove bugs, and this would go to the software development team. Now to the next slide, finally. Here we have the communication plan. Now, on the left-hand side, we have the stakeholder analysis. This is essentially going to identify the most important to kind of the least important or the lowest of interest. So if we look in the top left and the bottom right of the diagram on the left, we can see satisfying the stakeholders is a very high requirement, and then to notify our stakeholders/investors of certain updates is also quite important. However, monitoring the operations, we deem that to be slightly lower. It's still important, but we deem it to be slightly lower than the other ones. Now, on the right, we have the communication matrix. Now, this is essentially how we would communicate with the stakeholders involved. The riders, they would simply contact us when a problem is needed. That's when they call up for help, and they do it basically on their basis. That's when they would like to, and they can either do this by email or a phone call service helpline. Drivers, generally the same thing. Reasons to contact would be problems that occurred, but potentially also updates to notify them about certain details. And this will be done generally when it's needed as well. And they will also be contacted via email or phone call. The next stakeholder we have is the mobile operating providers. They will be told, they will be spoken to when problems occur, but also the state of the project, which means when it comes to problems being occurred, that's basically when the time arrives, but on the state of the project, that will be done on a weekly basis. They will still be contacted via email and phone call, but they might also be called via video face call or in-person meetings. Next is employees, similar to the mobile operating providers, essentially problems that occurred in the state of the project, and they will be notified when it's needed, but also daily, so they're constantly up to date. Communication process will be done exactly the same way as the other people, with email, phone service, and potentially a video or face-to-face call. The final one we have there is the investors. Again, if problems occur, they'll be notified, or the state of the project, and they too will be told when it's needed or weekly, and they will be given the run through done through email, phone, or potentially video and face-to-face call. On to the next slide. So this final one is ethical values and potential issues. So one of the ethical matters which has been overlooked was the overall cost of using the app, whilst also being provided for the drivers and the correct amount of transporting. So there were some factors to consider in this situation. Firstly, we had to identify, would it potentially be better to allow for drivers to choose their own prices and their own conditions? This as such would dictate how much they would receive, but also how much somebody would have to pay for them. Generally, the more professional, more regarded they are, the more they can boost this, the more they can increase their chances. And as I said, it would be connected to somewhat the driver's professional. However, alternatively, we did also discuss potentially be better to have set prices where your prices are calculated based on the distance, and that too would be how much someone would have to pay and how much the driver would gain. Unfortunately, though, with both key values, both key ideas in play, we did come to the ethical issue of fairness, where essentially if everybody wants to keep lowering their price to stay in the competition, it might reach a point where the prices become so low that drivers cannot compete in this field, and that can, of course, just be unfair. So what we did is we basically came to the conclusion that having a set price for the drivers would be ultimately just more fair, as it would generally deny the inevitability of other drivers losing their prices and not being able to compete. So having set prices was basically identified as being the lesser evil in this situation. Moving on.
The project sign-off. To conclude this project management plan, all aspects of managing a major project have been covered with this RideShare application. As a recap, topics covered in this PMP include analyst of scope and objectives, timeframe, cost, stakeholders, risk management, communication plans, and ethical issues. Thank you for listening to our presentation today. I hope it was informative in our project. Thank you and goodbye.